The newly released action movie Havoc claims that the blood used in it could flood an entire city. In this film, the lead actor Tom Hardy no longer plays Venom, but instead transforms into a human meat grinder. The director, none other than the legendary Gareth Evans, famous for the Raid series, brings his trademark style of brutal action to the screen. Today, let's dive into this movie that perfectly weaves blood, violence, and inner struggles, and experience the stubbornness and courage of a character who refuses to give up. Even in the face of despair, the story begins with a drug heist. To help alleviate his family's financial struggles, police officer Walker, along with 4 colleagues, plans a heist on a drug den they've been watching for a while. But just as they're about to leave, a drug dealer guarding the door hears a noise and enters with a flashlight to check things out. Walker, taking advantage of the moment, knocks him down, but when he sees the man's face, everything changes. The man is actually an undercover cop planted by the police in the drug den, and he's even brought a listening device into the operation. Walker insists they should immediately get him to the hospital, but Vincent, one of his colleagues, argues that doing so would be too risky. One bullet shatters Walker's compassion and drags him into deep self-recrimination. Over the next period of time, Walker returns to his father's old house, hoping time will help him forget the painful memory. However, the other 4 officers find themselves in trouble. They're ordered to intercept a truck carrying drugs, but these criminals seem too familiar with the police's tactics. Faced with the police's pursuit, the criminals keep pressing the accelerator. Their powerful vehicle allows them to glide effortlessly through the muddy roads. Seeing that the criminals aren't cooperating, the officers decide to use force. The criminals, realizing they're cornered, crash through a guardrail and drive onto the highway, with the police in hot pursuit. In a desperate attempt to shake off the pursuit, the criminals see a washing machine next to them and hatch an idea. They open the car door and, together, hurl the washing machine at the police car. The throw succeeds in stopping the police car, but it leads to even greater problems for the criminals. When the rest of the team arrives, they find Cortez covered in blood and barely clinging to life. His colleagues rush to call for medical help. Meanwhile, the escaping criminals, along with Mia, head to a Chinese gang's Triad territory, carrying 2 black bags. They enter an underground bar under the guidance of one of the gang members. The person in front of them is Sui, the current leader of the Triad. The gang member opens the bags, revealing a stash of illegal goods. At this moment, the lookout outside notices a suspicious car exiting the alley. The people inside are wearing masks, clearly up to no good. The lookout immediately calls Mia to warn her. As Walker and his new partner finished their patrol and were about to head back, they heard a police broadcast over the radio. Without hesitation, Walker makes a quick U-turn, and Ellie switches on the siren. The 2 rush toward the crime scene. By the time they arrive, the area is already heavily sealed off, and inside the bar, the scene is a bloody massacre. Everyone inside is dead, including Sui, the Triad boss. With his years of police experience, Walker quickly imagines what must have happened when the attackers appeared. The Triad members were caught completely off guard. The assailants had superior weapons and firepower, leaving no chance for retaliation. One by one, the Triad members were shot down, turning the scene into a human hell. Just as Walker begins to think through the potential suspects, he's interrupted by a colleague. From his colleague, Walker learns that Cortez has been injured. Cortez and Walker have a close relationship, and his injury comes as a shock to him. At that moment, Ellie walks over, holding up her phone. They've managed to catch a glimpse of the killer on the surveillance footage. When Walker sees the man's face, his expression changes, but to avoid drawing attention from his partner, he shifts his focus to the weapon in the young man's hand. He concludes that the young man is likely not the killer, as there are no handgun shell casings at the scene. A handgun couldn't cause such massive damage so quickly. His words successfully mislead Ellie, and while she's still confused, Walker quietly slips away. Walker noticed a trail of blood extending from the door all the way to the street. Walker immediately deduced that someone must have escaped. Without making a scene, he turned and quickly left the scene. He then went to see the mayoral candidate, Beaumont. It turns out, the young black man seen in the surveillance footage was his son, Charlie. However, Beaumont couldn't believe his son could be involved in a murder, but Walker knew better. He didn't need proof Charlie was already implicated. If this got out to the public, Beaumont's chances of becoming mayor would be over. No one would believe that the father of a criminal could effectively run a city. Beaumont, enraged after hearing this, insisted that Walker do whatever it took to find Charlie and bring him back.
I make one phone call. You and your friends go down for life.
Walker knew he had leverage on Beaumont and had no choice but to agree, but on the condition that after this, they would never have any further dealings. Beaumont reluctantly agreed. Meanwhile, Sui's mother, furious over the murder of her only son, immediately arrived in New York from Hong Kong. Seeing her son's cold, lifeless body, Crawley could hardly process the grief. Hate took root in her heart, and the desire for vengeance was set in motion. She slowly walked over to Ching, the man responsible for her son's security, drew the weapon from his waist, and killed 3 of his men.
兇手喺邊？
佢個老豆有後台嘅，唔係咁容易揾到嘅，大家姐。
掘唔到個兇手出嚟，你就準備去陪我嘅仔。
This was a warning, a lesson to others. Based on the information he had gathered, Walker made his way to Chinatown. At that moment, Sui's fleeing men were hiding out there, nursing their wounds. Walker easily overpowered the small-time henchmen guarding the area and charged in. When one of the henchmen saw Walker coming, he attempted to escape through a broken window, but Walker was faster, grabbing him and pulling him back inside. This man was key to finding Charlie, and he couldn't die just yet. Walker showed him a photo and asked if he had seen the person in it, but the henchman refused to speak. With no other option, Walker escalated the interrogation, using both psychological and physical pressure. Eventually, the man confessed he had seen Charlie with Ching, but when Walker asked if Charlie was the one who shot Sui, the man denied it. He claimed that 3 black-clad men wearing hockey masks were the ones who killed Sui. At first, this seemed like a lead, but upon further reflection, it didn't help much since no one knew what those 3 men looked like. Walker realized that pressing the henchman any further was pointless. He warned the man's doctor and then left the room. However, the doctor picked up a scalpel from the floor and slashed his artery. After leaving Chinatown, Walker headed to the hospital, where he met with the other members of his squad. Their expressions made it clear that things were getting worse. Vincent then confirmed the news. They had completed their investigation and confirmed that Charlie was the truck driver from that night. Charlie was now on the wanted list.
What's that supposed to mean?
We've all done shit for Lawrence, but that don't give his kid a free pass to hurt one of our own.
So what you gonna do? You gonna shoot him?
Vincent didn't answer directly, but the look on his face told Walker everything he needed to know. Later, Walker visited Cortez in the hospital room. Although Cortez was no longer in critical condition, the doctors couldn't guarantee whether he would wake up or if he would wake up as a vegetable. Seeing his former close friend lying in the hospital bed, Walker couldn't help but feel a deep sorrow. Kyla told him that when Cortez was first brought to the hospital, he kept muttering that the 5 of them were in trouble. Kyla didn't understand what that meant, but Walker knew it had something to do with their heist at the drug dealer's hideout. But to ease Kyla's mind, Walker took the blame upon himself.
That has absolutely nothing to do with them. That's on me, and that's on Vincent. But it has nothing to do with them.
Meanwhile, Mia, desperate to escape the dangerous situation with Charlie, turned to her foster father, Raul, hoping he could help them both get new passports. Raul, worried about them being found, suggested they hide at his secret safe house while he prepared the passports, promising to join them once everything was ready. However, he never anticipated that just as he finished the passports, Walker would show up first. After returning to the police station from the hospital, Walker's partner updated him with the latest findings. The girl who was with Charlie at the crime scene was Raul's foster daughter, and he ran a scrap yard. This was crucial information, so Walker decided to take a chance and visit Raul. He just so happened to catch Raul trying to hide the passports. After confirming the details on the passports, Walker asked Raul where Charlie and Mia were hiding, but Raul stubbornly refused to tell him. Walker was ready to threaten him, so he immediately pressed the gun to Raul's chest. With no other choice, Raul finally surrendered. He handed over the phone used for communication with them and revealed how Mia would collect the passports. Walker warned him not to mention his visit to anyone. If anyone asked, Raul was to deny knowing him. With that, he drove away from the scrapyard. As Walker was dealing with this, Beaumont, desperate to find his son, encountered trouble of his own. Members of the Triad had already set their sights on him. At a traffic jam intersection, their car was surrounded by Triad members, and one of them climbed onto their car with a gun. The terrified assistant opened the car door, trying to escape, but what awaited her was a cold bullet, and Beaumont was taken captive by the Triad. Sui's mother, upon hearing from her subordinate Ching, learned about Mia and Charlie's connection. Clearly, if they found Mia, capturing Charlie wouldn't be difficult. At this moment, a member of Mia's gang, Curly, approached. He knew what kind of organization the Triad was, and to save himself, he was willing to lead them to Mia.
Where?
Meanwhile, Mia had just received a message from Raoul, asking her to meet at a bar called Medusa, but instead of Raoul, it was Walker who showed up. Seeing him, Mia tried to escape, but Walker grabbed her and pulled her back. He told Mia that he wasn't there to arrest her. If she told him Charlie's whereabouts, he would leave immediately, but Mia was tough and didn't care about Walker's threats. She refused to reveal Charlie's location. However, at that moment, she noticed 3 figures walking into the bar. Walker turned around and saw 3 of his teammates from the squad among the crowd. Mia explained that they had been wearing hockey masks, but one of them had his mask knocked off by her. Vincent stepped forward, eager to talk to Mia, but Walker decisively stopped him. Just as the tension was rising, Walker noticed Triad members moving closer to them. At that moment, Vincent finally spotted the Triad's enforcers. As he prepared to stop them with his badge, one of the Triad members knocked the badge out of his hand with a baton. Mia turned and ran, and Walker quickly launched into action. In an instant, the bar erupted into chaos as a massive brawl broke out. The Triad's goal was clear. They didn't know who killed Sui, but they had come to capture Mia based on Curly's lead. Once they had Mia, they believed they could find Charlie and take revenge on Sui. What they thought would be a simple operation turned into a fierce struggle when they ran into Walker and 3 other highly capable members of the Black Police Squad. Throughout the chaos, Walker made sure to protect Mia from harm. Mia, having learned a few tricks from her veteran foster father, managed to amplify her combat abilities several times over when her life was on the line. As the battle intensified, regular weapons were no longer enough to deal with these criminals. After taking down several Triad members, Walker was the first to open fire, taking out the enforcer threatening Mia, then began a rapid assault on the remaining Triad members. Mia took the opportunity to climb up the iron framework to the first floor. Just as Charlie and Raoul arrived, Walker jumped down and immediately grabbed Charlie. His goal in finding Mia was ultimately to get to him, but Charlie resisted. Walker, holding Mia as leverage, demanded that Charlie come with him. At that moment, the Triad members caught up, and Walker wasted no time taking them out before re-aiming at Mia. But the Triad's assault was relentless, and Walker had no choice but to take both of them and leave the area. During the chaos, Raoul was hit by several bullets. Seeing this, Charlie immediately pulled out a gun and fought back. One of the police squad members successfully took down several Triad members, but in the end, he was struck in the carotid artery. As Walker led Mia and Charlie through the corridor, they encountered arriving police officers. Walker pulled out his badge to identify himself, but just then, seeing the situation, Walker had no choice but to turn back with the 2 of them, to give Mia enough time to escape. Raoul used his own hands to hold the door shut tightly. As Charlie pulled Mia away, a barrage of bullets turned Raoul into Swiss cheese. Walker managed to get both of them outside, ready to drive them away, but Sui's mother's bodyguard appeared and opened fire on their car. Walker had to reverse while shooting back, disrupting their fire. At that moment, Vincent and another officer charged out. Walker and his group managed to escape, but the curly-haired traitor was taken down by the bodyguard as she was preparing to leave. Just then, a large number of police officers arrived. Thanks to their badges, Vincent and his team managed to escape justice once again. Ellie also arrived at the scene with the team but was soon contacted by Walker. Walker informed her about the events of the day, revealing that Vincent and the others were involved. He also told her that their chase of the truck was only to steal the drugs and that they were the ones who killed Sui. Ellie was stunned by this revelation. Walker advised her to go to the hospital and protect Cortez, as he suspected someone would try to harm him after everything that had happened. Ellie rushed to the hospital without delay, but she was too late. Ching had already arrived. Through his conversation with Vincent, it turned out that they had orchestrated everything, including the truck interception and Sui's murder. After the death of the former Triad leader, power was supposed to be handed down to Ching, the second-in-command. However, Sui's mother forcibly placed her son in the leadership position instead. Ching, feeling resentful after years of hard work, teamed up with Vincent and others to orchestrate everything. Their plan was to take the boss's position for themselves and shift all the blame onto Charlie. However, their plan started to go awry with the unexpected appearance of Walker. As things got more complicated, they decided to eliminate all those who knew the truth, including the injured Cortez. Meanwhile, Ellie arrived at the hospital and, while asking for Cortez's room, noticed Ching in the hallway through the security cameras.
What floor is that? What floor is he on? Third floor. Notify security. Now!
Upon hearing the alarm, one of the officers stood up, but before he could react, Ching gunned him down, turning him into a sieve of bullets. Cortez in his hospital room wasn't spared either, as a barrage of bullets ended his life. As Ching turned around, he ran into Kyla, who was returning with water. At that moment, Ellie rushed out of the hallway, and seeing the situation, Ching grabbed Kyla as a hostage, putting them into a standoff. Ching, now consumed by rage, had no fear of Ellie's gun and shot the innocent Kyla in front of her. This completely enraged Ellie. She immediately pursued Ching, and the two engaged in a fierce gunfight in the narrow staircase, bullets ricocheting off the surrounding railings, sparking wildly. Ellie managed to subdue Ching, but just then, she heard police sirens outside. To avoid any complications, Ellie shoved Ching into her car and quickly drove off. After leaving the bar, Walker took Charlie and Mia to a lakeside cabin left by his father. Charlie had been shot in the shoulder, but the injury wasn't too severe. Walker then called Beaumont, but what he didn't know was that it was Sui's mother who answered the phone. Walker informed her that he had found her son and sent her an address to come and pick him up. Beaumont overheard the conversation but didn't dare respond, knowing a bloodier battle was on the horizon. Unable to reach Walker, Ellie decided to go find his ex-wife. After learning Ellie's intentions, his ex-wife provided the address where Walker might be. Back in her car, Ellie handed her phone to Ching, asking him to call Vincent and the others, lying that she had found a buyer for their drugs. Vincent and Jack arrived at the agreed location and saw Ching standing there from a distance. However, just as they approached to complete the deal, Ellie suddenly popped up from the car, gun drawn. Seeing this, Jack reluctantly unloaded his gear. Meanwhile, Walker, having suited up, noticed a convoy approaching outside. A group of fully armed men in black headed toward them. As Walker dove to avoid gunfire, he tossed a handgun to Mia. Mia picked it up and, without hesitation, began to retaliate, with Walker quickly following suit. Despite the constant barrage of bullets from their attackers, Walker seized the opportunity and took down one of the approaching gunmen. The enemy's assault grew more frenzied, and Charlie grabbed a weapon from the ground. In such a situation, their only hope of survival was to work together. The attackers relentlessly stormed the house, one after another, determined not to let the few inside escape. This approach provided excellent emotional value for viewers, but in some ways, it diminished the film's cultural depth. However, it wasn't a senseless action flick. At least, after the bullets ran out, you could clearly see the characters picking up the weapons of the fallen criminals. The latter half of the film was drenched in blood, incredibly violent and intense, despite the overwhelming numbers of the enemy. As Walker tangled with the henchmen, Charlie and Mia were forcibly dragged out of the house. Recovering from the chaos, Walker rejoined the fight but was overwhelmed by the bodyguard's relentless assault. For a moment, Walker found himself unable to defend against her onslaught. Walker was pinned under the collapsed wooden shed, but just as the bodyguard approached to finish him off, a harpoon gun aimed at her. The bodyguard lost her life, and the exhausted Walker passed out. Sui's mother arrived at the scene with Beaumont. Seeing her son covered in blood, Beaumont was deeply distressed. Sui's mother took the gun from her subordinate and handed it to Beaumont, telling him that since her son lost his life because of his son, the only way to make it fair was for him to kill his own son. Beaumont, hearing this, actually raised the gun, and Charlie, desperate, begged for his life. Just as tragedy seemed inevitable, Ellie suddenly appeared, pushing Vincent, Ching, and others forward, revealing the bloody scheme behind it all.
你個仔唔係佢哋殺嘅，你追錯人。
Sui's mother finally realized that it was Ching who had killed her son. Hearing this, Ching tried to shift the blame onto Vincent and Jack.
你殺咗我個仔！
As Ellie fell to the ground, Jack grabbed a gun from the floor and aimed it at Charlie. Seeing his son in danger, Beaumont rushed forward, and the bullet meant for Charlie hit him instead. Beaumont collapsed. Walker, waking up to the chaos, saw what had happened. He grabbed a rifle and began a rapid barrage of fire at Jack, but missed. Ellie, also regaining her footing, shot Jack with a shotgun, while Vincent took the opportunity to grab a gun from one of the fallen henchmen, emptying the clip into him. The scene descended into another brutal fight this time. Ching's men clashed with Sui's mother's associates. The battle was chaotic, and even Walker came close to being caught in the crossfire. Sui's mother, caught off guard, was struck by a bullet from Ching, falling to the ground lifeless. Her death intensified the violence of the fight. Ching was severely wounded by Vincent, who, in front of him, took the bag of drugs worth millions of dollars. Seeing Vincent flee, Walker immediately got up to chase him. Meanwhile, the fight between Ellie and Jack neared its end. Just as Ellie was about to finish Jack off, she realized her gun was out of ammo. Jack, ready to retaliate, prepared to strike. The next round of bullets, however, didn't just avenge her father but also rid the New York Police Department of a significant threat. Vincent, meanwhile, carrying the drugs, reached the train tracks, planning to escape by jumping on a train. However, Walker was right behind him. As Vincent climbed onto the train, Walker opened fire, taking him down with a barrage of bullets. With Vincent now close to death, Walker approached, but Vincent grabbed a gun in a last-ditch effort to fight back. Ultimately, Vincent fell, dead on the spot, and so, the five-man police squad was left with only Walker. After instructing Charlie and Mia to leave and never return, Ellie turned and approached the barely conscious Walker. Walker confessed to all the wrongs he had done in the past, saying this time, he wasn't planning to run away.
You're a good cop, Ellie. Probably should have been nicer to you.
For the first time, Ellie heard Walker acknowledge her words.
I'll make sure she gets it. Her daughter. I'll take the present to her.
I don't want to ruin her Christmas.
Havoc is not just a simple action film. Through its compelling plot and intense action scenes, it deeply explores the darker side of society and the struggles and decisions people face when confronted with temptation and adversity. Every character in the film has their own motives and goals, intertwining in this world filled with crime, together portraying a heart-stopping battle between life and death. The end,